Welcome to Reddit Stories, where OP's daughter-in-law is causing major family drama. Am I the jerk for not wanting to contribute to my stepdaughter's college fund? Plus final updates. I'm 39 male. My wife, Emily, who's 38, and I have been married for 12 years. Emily has a daughter named Jessie, who's 17, from a previous relationship with Dan. She left Dan years ago after catching him cheating with a coworker. They've shared 50-50 custody ever since. I met Emily about a year after that breakup, and things got serious between us pretty quickly. Around a year later, Dan married the woman that he cheated with, and not long after that, Em and I got married too. From the start, Jessie and I didn't click. I'll admit, I tried too hard in the beginning and I came on too strong. I wanted her to like me, but the harder I tried, the more uncomfortable it got for both of us. Eventually, I stopped pushing and just gave her space. Over time, we reached what I'd call a quiet truce. It wasn't warmth, but more like tolerance. Emily and I have 3 kids together now, who are 10, 7, and 4. Jessie doesn't really have a relationship with them. She's not mean, just distant. She prefers spending time with her dad's kids, and that's fine, but it hurts to watch her keep her distance from her siblings. Our oldest 2 have learned to avoid her when she's around. Both Emily and I have good jobs, and years ago, we agreed on how to handle college funds. I'd contribute 80% toward our 3 kids' funds, and Em would add the other 20%. In return, she'd fully fund Jessie's college account herself. We figured it was the fairest way since Jessie already had another parent who might also help out financially. This way, no one would be left behind. Recently, Em sat down with Jessie to go over her college fund. She seemed happy about it until she went to visit Dan for the weekend. When she came home, she suddenly asked Em about the other kids' funds. She told her the truth, that their accounts were larger because of how we split the contributions. Jessie was furious. She accused me of pretending to be family all these years, said I was heartless for not contributing to her fund, and told Emily I clearly didn't care about her. Emily tried to mediate. She suggested maybe we could take some money from our youngest child's account to even things out a little, and she'd pay it back later. She even told me it was entirely my call and promised she wouldn't pressure me either way. But honestly, I didn't want to do that. Jessie has always idolized her father, even after finding out Dan cheated. That's her right, but she also blames her mother for the breakup, which still stings. She's treated me like an outsider for years and refused to go to family therapy because according to her, I wasn't really her family. Now that money is involved, suddenly I'm family again. Maybe it's petty, but I can't shake the feeling that it's unfair to take from the children who actually see me as a parent to give to someone who's made it clear for years that I'm not. So, am I the jerk? Edit. I think some clarifications are in order. I don't hate Jessie for looking up to her father. What bothers me is that she blames Em for their family breaking apart. When she was 13, one of Dan's relatives told her what really happened. Emily sat her down and explained that she left because Dan cheated. We tried to get therapy for her back then, but it didn't happen. More on that later. Last year, Jessie told Emily that she still thought she was to blame. She said she should have forgiven Dan and stayed with him for the sake of family. Emily was shocked. She asked her if the situation were reversed and if she had been the one to cheat, would Dan have been the one at fault for leaving? Jessie said no. She told her that in that case, it would definitely be her fault. She didn't say it in anger either. It came up casually at dinner. The conversation got so tense that we had to excuse the younger kids from the table. When Emily and I got serious, she wanted Jessie to see a child therapist to help her adjust. But since Dan shared custody, his permission was required. He refused every time. When we got engaged, he said Jessie didn't need therapy because she's fine. Even when Jessie later started showing resentment toward her mother, Dan just brushed it off. We asked Jessie again to consider therapy last year. She refused, saying I wasn't family and she didn't want to sit in a room with me pretending we were one. For those saying I'm treating a teenager like an adult or excluding her, we've tried everything. When Emily and I started earning well, we made sure Jessie was included in every birthday, holiday, and trip. She always got the same gifts and experiences as the other kids, sometimes more. When she turned 11, she asked to go to Disney World. We paid for the trip and invited both of Dan's kids so she'd have fun. Dan went with them and we stayed home. We started college funds about a year after our daughter was born. Emily couldn't start one for Jessie earlier because she was a stay-at-home mom when she was with Dan and she didn't have the means. Once she got back on her feet, she did what she could. Looking back, yes, Jessie has been shortchanged. Emily plans to make up that difference as much as possible before she starts college, though her total will still be lower than the other three. We're planning to sit down with Jessie this weekend to talk things through and hopefully clear the air. Update. It's been an eye-opening weekend, and I wanted to thank everyone who shared their thoughts, even the harsh ones. I knew posting on Reddit meant hearing all sides, and honestly, some of it helped more than I expected. Before the update itself, I should clear a few things up, because a couple of gaps in my first post turned into some wild assumptions. Something that came up a lot was people calling Emily the bad guy for telling Jessie the difference between her college fund and the other kids' funds. I showed her the post. She explained that Jessie came home from Dan's asking questions about when the fund started and how much was in it. She said something like, "So mine is this much and theirs is this much?" where her number was higher. Without thinking, Emily corrected her and said, "No, yours is this much and theirs is this much." She didn't mean to start anything. She just made a thoughtless correction and it spiraled. Now for what actually happened. Yesterday, Emily, Jessie, and I finally sat down for a long talk. Jessie didn't want to speak to me, but I told her that if she expected me to even consider helping with her college fund, then she'd have to answer some questions. The conversation lasted hours, and we finally got the full picture. It turns out that long before Emily and Dan officially broke up, Dan was already taking Jessie to visit the woman that he cheated with. So by the time Emily left, Jessie already knew the other woman. After the breakup, Dan immediately moved in with her. Emily, who had been a stay-at-home mom, was struggling to get back on her feet. Jessie's home life with her was harder and less stable than with Dan, and that made things worse. Emily didn't tell Jessie the real reason for the breakup, not because she wanted to hide it, but because telling that to a toddler wouldn't have made any sense. But Dan didn't waste time spinning his own story. He told Jessie that Emily would eventually come back to him. When I entered the picture, Dan said I was the reason she couldn't. When Dan married his affair partner, he told Jessie it was temporary and just a way to make Emily jealous. When Emily and I got married, he told Jessie that it was my way of making it impossible for her parents to reunite. When Jessie got older and finally learned from a cousin that her dad had cheated, Emily told her the truth. But when Jessie confronted Dan, Dan changed the story again. He told her that Emily had already left him for a long time and that he was lonely, so he found comfort in someone else. He painted himself as the victim, and Jessie believed him. When Emily got pregnant with our daughter, Dan told Jessie that I was having my spawn with her mother, Jessie's words, not mine, and that our family was now permanently broken. Dan also told her that Emily and I wanted to take her to therapy, not to help her, but to label her as a problem child so we could send her away to boarding school and live happily without her. He said that only he and his new family were fighting to keep Jessie. During our talk, Jessie admitted that she used to act cold towards us on purpose, hoping it would push Emily away from me. She said she thought that if she made things miserable enough at home, her mom would eventually leave me and go back to her real family. But when she kept having more kids with me, she realized that wasn't going to happen. When I asked her if Dan had saved anything for college, Jessie said no. The affair partner's parents had created a trust fund for Dan's 2 sons, but Jessie wasn't included because she's not their grandchild. Dan hasn't saved a cent for any of his kids. So I asked Jessie the question that had been hanging over me all this time. Why should I be the one to contribute when she spent years rejecting me and my kids? She said that she was fine with the amount Emily had saved at first, but that Dan convinced her we were shortchanging her. I asked if my contribution would make us family now, or at least friends, if she could be kinder to my kids when she visits. She said no. She said she knows we're not the villains her father made us out to be, but she still blames me for ruining her parents' chances of getting back together. She said she'll never forgive me for that, and since my kids are part of my family, she'll never like them either. She also told us her plan. Once she leaves for college, she's cutting off contact with all of us. She said she might reconnect with Emily someday when she's ready to forgive her for breaking up her family, but not before. Emily was devastated. Hearing all that from her own daughter crushed her. I was stunned too. We sat there in silence for a while after she left. After a lot of talking that night, Emily and I agreed on what to do. I'm not contributing to Jessie's college fund. Emily will continue what she's been putting in and give it to her when she turns 18. We're not pushing for family therapy anymore. We've done what we can, and it's time to stop trying to force something that clearly isn't going to happen. If Jessie's happy with Dan's family, we'll let her stay in that world. Emily's hurting, but even she admitted that after everything Jessie said, she's struggling to recognize the little girl she used to know. We've both done therapy before because of how much strain the situation has put on us. We'll probably start again, separately and as a couple. We both just want peace now. Update 2. A lot of people asked how we didn't realize that Dan was poisoning her against us for so long. The truth is, we did suspect some level of parental alienation. That's why we kept pushing for therapy all these years. What we didn't know was just how deep it went. Every time we tried talking to Jessie about her behavior, she'd either shut down completely or throw a tantrum. And since Dan always refused therapy, we were stuck. We knew Dan had a way of twisting stories, but hearing how far he had gone to turn Jessie against her own mother, that was a shock. When Jessie told Emily last year that she was to blame for their family breaking up, that was our first real glimpse of how much resentment had built up over the years. Some people also suggested suing Dan for parental alienation, but it's too late for that. Jessie turns 18 next year, and we have no concrete proof of anything. We didn't record the conversation, and Jessie wouldn't testify against her father anyway. Now for what's been happening since our last talk. After everything that came out, Emily was shaken. She tried to respond when Jessie threw those accusations at her, but she froze up. Real life isn't like TV. When your own child tells you that they hate you and calls you the reason that their family fell apart, you don't have a clever speech ready. You just sit there trying to breathe. After a few days, we both had time to process and talk things over. We read a lot of advice from the last post, and Emily decided on a new plan for Jessie's college fund. She's going to keep contributing to it until she turns 18, but the money will never go directly to her. If she chooses to go to college, the payments will go straight to the institution. If she skips college, the money will stay in the fund until she turns 25. We've already spoken to our lawyer. If Emily passes before Jessie turns 25, the lawyer will handle the payout according to her wishes. That way, neither Jessie nor Dan can twist the story or claim I had anything to do with it. Since that decision, Jessie hasn't come home. She stayed at a friend's place for a few days, then went back to Dan's. Emily asked her to come over on Saturday so they could talk again. She sat her down and told her plainly that if she was determined to walk away from this family, then there was no point in pretending anymore. She said she was hurt, disappointed, and tired of the blame. She told her that believing she destroyed the family because she refused to stay with a cheating man was unacceptable. She also told her that I won't be adding a single cent to her college fund. If she doesn't see me as family, then I have no obligation to act like one. And if she thinks the amount is unfair, she can talk to her father about covering the difference. Finally, she told her the terms of the fund, that all payments will go directly to the school, not to her, and that if she doesn't enroll, she'll have to wait until she's 25 to receive it. Em also said that from now on, if she doesn't want to visit, she doesn't have to. We talked to our lawyer about that too. She's not giving up custody officially yet, but she won't be forcing Jessie to spend time here either. She sat there quietly while she spoke. She didn't argue, didn't cry, didn't shout. She just listened. That night, she stayed in her room, and by Sunday morning, she was gone and back to Dan's house. We haven't heard from her since. Final update. I keep getting messages asking for another update, so here it is, but this will be the last one. It's been about 2 weeks since Emily's last talk with Jessie, the one where she told her I wouldn't be adding to her college fund and that she'd only pay for school directly. After that, there was nothing but silence. No texts, no calls, no visits. She stayed with Dan, and Emily didn't insist that she come over, even though she still technically has shared custody. Then, out of nowhere, Jessie called. She said she had gotten into college and needed her entire college fund immediately to book her admission. Now, we might be out of practice when it comes to college applications, but we're not idiots. Schools don't demand full payment up front. At most, you pay a small deposit after getting an official acceptance letter. When Emily asked for proof, the school's name, an acceptance letter, anything, she refused to share it. Said the college had no option for direct payment. At that point, it was so comically obvious this wasn't about college. It's like she thought we were brainless idiots. Emily calmly told her she'd be happy to pay the school directly, but she wouldn't hand her the money. That's when she got angry. She started yelling, and Emily hung up. Not even an hour later, Dan called, which shocked us. He hasn't called in over a decade. Normally, we're the ones reaching out, begging him to approve therapy or agree to something for Jessie. But this time, he was furious. He accused us of sabotaging her future by withholding the college fund. Emily explained that the money was her savings, not a court-ordered fund, not something Jessie was entitled to. It was something she had set aside out of love, not obligation. When she said that, Dan lost it. He started hurling insults at both of us, so Emily ended the call. But since we were so caught off guard that he had actually called for once, we'd hit record at the start. So now we've got that call saved. After that, everything went quiet again until this Monday. Dan's cousin, Julie, who's always been kind to Emily and whose kids are close with ours, came by with some news. Apparently, Dan's wife, the same woman he cheated on Emily with, is divorcing him. Turns out he cheated on her too. She moved out months ago and is now living with her parents along with their kids. Meanwhile, Dan's been going around asking relatives to lend him money for a new business venture, but no one's buying it. That's when it hit us. Jessie's sudden college acceptance might have been a setup. Maybe Dan was trying to get his hands on Emily's savings through Jessie. Since then, Emily has tried calling and texting Jessie, but she hasn't responded. We don't know if she's embarrassed, angry, or still under her dad's influence. Probably all three. So that's where things stand. There's no happy ending here. Not yet, anyway. But we're done chasing closure from people who don't want it. Emily and I are grateful for the kindness and wisdom so many of you have shared. Not all of it was easy to read, but it helped us see things clearly. To those who chose to send hate, I hope you find something better to do with your time. Whatever happens next, we'll face it privately, together as a family. Thank you, truly. Wow, I'm glad Emily stood her ground. That college fund demand was never about Jessie's education. It was a scam set up by Dan. Dan's the kind of man who ruins everything he touches. First his marriage, then his daughter, now his second one too. It's honestly poetic that the same lies he used to control Jessie are now catching up to him. Dan's finally getting what he deserves, and it sounds like Jessie might have to learn the hard way. It's heartbreaking, but sometimes distance is the only way for the truth to sink in. I feel for Emily. No mother should have to compete with manipulation that deep. But she did the hardest thing. She stopped feeding into it. That's strength. When Jessie eventually realizes her father's house of cards is collapsing, she'll remember who still spoke calmly and stood firm. You and Emily did everything right. You tried therapy, honesty, patience, and boundaries. That's more than most people would have done. Dan destroyed his own daughter's trust for selfish gain, and now he's paying for it. Emily doesn't owe him or Jessie a single penny beyond what she's already promised. Keep the fund safe and let time teach the lessons. So Dan tried to scam his ex for cash, using his own kid as bait. Real Father of the Year stuff right there. Yeah, turns out the only thing he got accepted into was Divorce University. And Emily? She graduated from the School of Boundaries with honors. Top of her class, no retakes needed. Yesterday, a rude Karen ruined my boyfriend's proposal to me. I've been dreaming of how I'd be proposed to since I was a kid. Not in a fairy tale way, just something heartfelt and real. Yesterday, after 5 years together and 2 sons, I finally got that moment. Except a Karen decided to make it about her. It all started early in the morning. My boyfriend and I had planned a full day of Carowinds, a big theme park that goes all out for fall. There were pumpkins everywhere, orange lights, fog machines, pure Halloween heaven. We went with my sister, her husband, and their 2 kids. My boys are still little. One is 3 years and the other is 2 months, so getting them ready felt like a marathon before the fun even started. When we finally got through the gate, there was this giant sign that said Carowinds with a huge jack-o'-lantern behind it. I thought it was the cutest thing ever and begged for a picture. My sister insisted I check both boys' diapers first, which somehow turned into a 20-minute bathroom detour. By the time I got back, I was desperate for that photo. We waited for our turn behind a few families. Everyone was taking their time, posing, laughing, being normal. Nobody was impatient. When it was finally our turn, we took a nice family photo shot of me, my boyfriend, and the kids. Then he asked for one of just us. I thought nothing of it. He handed his phone to my brother-in-law, then stood beside me. I smiled, expecting the click of the camera. Instead, he grabbed my hand. When I looked down, he was on one knee. For a second, I thought I was dreaming. I was standing there in my messy Halloween leggings, hair everywhere, baby carrier strapped to my chest. And yet, it was perfect. The love of my life was shaking, trying to get his words out, voice trembling from nerves. It was so raw and real that my eyes instantly filled up. Then I heard, "Hurry up." At first, I ignored it, thinking maybe someone was joking. But then it came again, louder. "Other people want a picture too. This is a public place." I turned and saw her. A gray-haired woman standing with her little family behind us, hands on her hips, rolling her eyes like she was personally offended by happiness. Everyone else in the area looked confused, even uncomfortable, but she doubled down. "You can take your family photos somewhere else." My boyfriend froze. His face fell, and I could tell every bit of confidence drained out of him. He had this whole speech planned, something he'd been rehearsing for days. But he stumbled and cut it short, just managing to ask me to marry him. I said yes right away, but he looked crushed. We walked away while she huffed and muttered something about people wasting time. No one said anything to her. Honestly, I wish someone had, but it all happened so fast. The video he recorded caught her voice over the whole thing. You can literally hear her shouting in the background while he's down on one knee. That night, he told me the speech he meant to say. He had practiced it for several days. He was going to talk about how we built a life through every storm, how even when we had nothing, we always had love. It broke my heart hearing it afterward because it should have been in that moment, not in the quiet of our hotel room while he apologized for being awkward. But karma doesn't miss. Later that night, the park switched to Scarowinds, their Halloween scare event. We were watching a live show, music blaring, when I noticed that same Karen from earlier posing with her family. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. A scare actor, a zombie clown or something like that, came barreling toward her out of nowhere, screamed at the top of his lungs, and jumped right into their picture, saying, "It's a public place." She screamed so loud, half the crowd turned to look. I nearly fell over laughing. The scare actor turned out to be the woman who was behind her in line earlier that day, the one who had seen the whole proposal. That made it all even sweeter. To anyone planning a public proposal, don't let rude people ruin your joy. You can't control how strangers act, but you can choose to keep the memory beautiful. I'll always remember that day, not for the Karen, but for the love behind it. Edit. I don't understand where or how this happened, but some of you got the impression that I was complaining and upset with my proposal. I'm not upset with it. Like I already said, it was beautiful and I loved it. I understand how the public works, and at the same time, everyone is allowed to have their turn. That was our turn. Absolutely no one around us was upset except this one woman. What I am upset about is that my fiancé feels terrible about the whole thing. I don't like seeing him beating himself up over something that wasn't his fault. Edit 2. We took about the same amount of time as everyone else and waited in the same line. His speech was simply, "Will you marry me?" After 2 kids and 5 years, I figured it was about time. What was taking so long was that he had a hard time getting the words out. The "it's about time" was how he shortened his speech. I'm so sorry that happened. But in public, you always run the chance of having it ruined by some jerk. When I was first researching where to have my very small wedding, I thought of our city park, which has a gorgeous bridge and a willow tree. I called the parks department to see if I could have a wedding there and what the permitting would look like. The parks manager gave me all of the information. Toward the end of the call, she paused and said, "You don't want to do this." She said the bridge had to stay open during the ceremony, and the last ceremony held there was ruined by some guy who walked over the bridge a dozen times, weaving between all of the guests, pushing between the bride and groom, and at one point, just standing still in front of the officiant. This wasn't the only incident like this, so she strongly recommends against it if people call her. Though she gave them the required info on how to do it if they insisted. This just shows how self-centered we've become. If you're willing to ruin a moment like this just because it slightly delays your turn for a picture, you're not just rude. You're a complete jerk who needs to get back in touch with reality. She really heckled a proposal like it was open mic night at the pumpkin patch. She couldn't wait 60 seconds for true love, but probably waits 6 hours for a sale at Kohl's. That zombie actor deserves a raise. Karma showed up in costume with perfect aim and timing. Nothing like a zombie clown screaming in your face to wrap up a love story. Rude gym goer tries using her lipstick to write an X on equipment that she's going to use. I've worked at my gym long enough to see just about everything, from people sneaking in friends to couples treating the stretching area like a movie date. One guy used to sing full karaoke ballads while bench pressing. But yesterday, I got introduced to something new, which I'll call the lipstick reservation system. It started like any normal afternoon. The gym wasn't packed, but it was busy enough that people had to share equipment and work in sets. I was training a client near the free weights when I noticed a woman walking a slow, deliberate path through the floor. She'd stop at a machine, pull something from her pocket, lean forward, and then move on. I didn't pay much attention at first, but after the 4th or 5th machine, something felt off. When she reached the last cable station, I finally saw it. In her hand was a tube of bright red lipstick. She twisted it up, leaned in, and drew a small X right on the padded seat. At first, I thought maybe she dropped it or accidentally brushed the bench. Guess I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. But no, she capped it, nodded to herself, and kept moving like she was checking items off a list. By the time I got closer, there were red X's scattered across several benches, a treadmill handle, and one of the rowing machines. I walked over calmly and asked her what she was doing. She said, and with total confidence too, that she was marking the equipment she planned to use after changing in the locker room, like she was reserving sun loungers at a resort. Then she put the lipstick back in her bag and headed off toward the locker room, completely unfazed. I stood there for a second, just trying to process it. The gym has rules about not reserving machines. You finish your set, wipe it down, and move on. Nobody owns a bench here. And on top of that, she had just smeared cosmetic product onto shared equipment. I grabbed some disinfectant and paper towels and started wiping the red marks off before anyone sat down on them. My client asked what was going on, so I explained quietly. A few nearby members overheard, and within a couple minutes, everyone was quietly laughing about the lipstick lady or the lipstick bandit, according to the other group. It wasn't mean-spirited, just disbelief that someone would think makeup was an acceptable reservation tool. 15 minutes later, she returned fresh from the locker room and ready to work out. She looked around, confused, realizing that every X she had made was gone. Worse, most of the machines she had marked were now being used. She walked up to me while I was spotting my client and said that all of her equipment was taken. I told her there's no reserving equipment and that her marks had to be cleaned up before others could use the machines. She looked offended, like I'd personally ruined her workout. She said she had a system that worked at her old gym. I told her that here, people take turns and sanitize for hygiene reasons. I also warned her not to use any product, makeup or otherwise, on equipment again. She didn't say much after that, just walked off and waited until the machines that she wanted opened up. That would have been the end of it, but the next day she came back. I saw her near the entrance, clutching the same gym bag. I mentioned to my boss that the lipstick lady had returned, and he decided to handle it himself. He's a fair guy, not quick to ban anyone, but he doesn't tolerate damage to equipment or sanitation issues. He walked over, asked her to come to his office, and they disappeared inside. I kept working with clients until we all heard yelling through the door. She was saying something like, "This isn't fair. You can't ban me just because I marked what equipment I'm going to use." My boss didn't raise his voice, but the tone must have been firm because she stormed out a minute later, red in the face, gym bag swinging like a weapon. She glared at me on the way out, but didn't say anything. The whole gym went quiet for a moment, then people went back to their workouts. A few shook their heads. One guy joked quietly that he'd bring a paint roller next time if that's how reservations work. She hasn't been back since. Her lipstick marks are long gone, but that short burst of chaos gave everyone something to talk about for the rest of the week. You really do see something new all the time working at a gym. That's one of the wildest things I've ever heard someone do in a gym. It's honestly impressive how confidently she said it like it was normal. I've seen people try to reserve equipment with towels or water bottles, but lipstick? That's new. I get frustrated when people sit on machines scrolling on their phones, but this lady made me appreciate them. At least they're using the equipment instead of turning it into an art project. You did the right thing, especially wiping it down before someone ended up with red stains on their clothes. Wow, that's next level entitlement. Good on your boss for banning her. She probably went home thinking she was the victim of some huge injustice. I feel bad for the poor staff who will have to deal with her at whatever gym she joins next. Though the better part of it is, if she put the lipstick on her lips after using it on the equipment where everyone sits. She really walked around the gym marking machines with lipstick like it was a scavenger hunt. Nothing says I'm a responsible adult like redecorating the dumbbells with Maybelline. I asked out my friend and she told me I can be her backup plan. Big mistake. I've been friends with Denise for about 12 years. We met in high school and she quickly became an important part of my life. We navigated those awkward teenage years together, supported each other through breakups, exams, and everything in between. As the years went by, those feelings deepened into a crush. I tried to shake it off, convincing myself that friendship was enough, but it never really worked. Then, about a year ago, I finally decided to take a chance and ask her out. It was a typical Friday evening. We were hanging out, joking around like always. The atmosphere felt right, so I took a deep breath and made my move. I was ready for a positive response, maybe even a shy smile or a teasing comment about how long it took me to ask. Instead, I was hit with the most unexpected and painful rejection I could imagine. "You'll be my backup plan when things don't work out," she said casually, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. The word stung. It felt like a punch to the gut. I forced a laugh, trying to play it off, but inside I was crushed. Did she really just say that? Was I really that replaceable to her? After that moment, I knew I had to pull back. I didn't want to be a backup plan or a consolation prize. I spent some time focusing on myself, working out more, picking up new hobbies, and even reconnecting with other friends. We still hung out, but I made an effort to emotionally distance myself from her. It was tough at first. I missed our old dynamic, but I knew it was necessary for my own well-being. Fast forward to yesterday. We were hanging out at one of our favorite spots, reminiscing about old times, when out of the blue, she mentioned wanting to date me. My heart sank. It was like a bad rerun of a show I never wanted to see again. I knew what she wanted, and I felt that similar sting from her previous comment bubbling up. "Denise, I can't," I said firmly. "You called me your backup plan. That's not how I want to be treated." Her expression shifted instantly from casual to defensive. She wanted to know why I was rejecting her now that she was ready. I took a deep breath. "You called me your backup plan, as in, if I can't get a man I like, I'll give you a chance. Calling any man your backup plan to his face will get you ignored." She stared at me for a moment, her expression a mix of frustration and disbelief. "But I didn't mean it like that." But I could tell that she was struggling to understand my point of view. "Regardless of your intent, it came out wrong. I don't want to be a fallback option for you," I said, my tone steady but firm. In that moment, it was clear that she was angry. Angry at me for not just accepting her offer, and angry at herself for putting me in this position. I could see the realization dawning on her that she might have pushed me too far this time. I got up and walked away. It felt good standing my ground. But then, later that day, I noticed I was blocked on all social media platforms. I knew it was a knee-jerk reaction from her. Maybe she felt embarrassed or hurt that I had turned her down so bluntly. Whatever the reason, it made me realize that perhaps I had made the right choice after all. As I reflected on the situation, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Maybe this was the end of our chapter together, or maybe it was just the beginning of a new one where I could finally prioritize myself and not be someone's backup plan. Not the jerk. You should value yourself. She saw you as a safety blanket and not as a real person. Am I the jerk for being greedy and not giving our daughter's stuff to my pregnant sister? I'm 33, and my husband and I have 2 kids who are 8 and 7. We didn't plan on having them so close together, but it happened. My husband got a vasectomy, so we're set. When I was pregnant with our son, we were living in a rented 2-bedroom house and decorated the nursery with olive and wood tones. We kept it the same when we had our daughter and just made room for the baby. When our son was 6 and our daughter was 5, my husband got a big promotion at work that allowed us to look for and buy a 4-bedroom forever house. Since it was a permanent move, we thought it would be fun to give the kids themed rooms. We asked them each what they wanted. Our son picked dinosaurs. My husband likes to joke that we have a mini Ross on our hands. So we went with a wilderness theme. Our daughter picked Aurora, so we did a fairy tale theme. We went all out, figuring these would be their bedrooms until their teens. We also gave the nursery furniture away since we were done having kids. We asked our families first, but none of them were planning kids at the time, so it went to friends. Now, my sister is 21 weeks pregnant with her first baby, a girl. She was over at our place and mentioned that she was leaning towards something like my daughter's room for the nursery, but nursery items are expensive. I told her she should go with a neutral tone since they plan on having a big family. She was like, "Nah, I want themed rooms for each baby like you did with yours." I raised my eyebrows because that's going to be expensive, but I nodded because who am I to talk when I kind of did the same? We continued chatting and she grabbed my laptop to browse the website I had used. She complained again about the prices, so I suggested she put some of the reasonably priced items on her baby shower list. She gave a non-committal hum and then said that I could give her some things as well. I was confused, thinking she meant the old nursery furniture, so I reminded her that we had already given it away. She shook her head and said she meant the stuff from our daughter's room. I asked her what she meant because my daughter is using that room. She waved her hand and told me it wasn't a big deal. We could part with a few things. I asked her what she thought we could part with, and she casually mentioned the drapes, a lamp, the mirror, and so on. I asked sarcastically if she wanted the sheets as well, or maybe the clothes. She glared at me and said I could just help her out. I told her a flat-out no, saying it was unreasonable to even ask since she and her husband are well off, just like us. It's not like she's struggling and I'm refusing to help. She said it was different for them because they want a big family and they need to save more. I told her if that's the case, they could save by using the same nursery for each baby. She just glared, calling me a greedy jerk, and then left. She's not replying to my texts, and my mom called to ask me what happened because my sister called her to complain without giving specifics. My mom was just as bewildered when I told her the full story. My husband thinks I'm in the right, and I do too, but I'm confused. Maybe there's something we're not seeing. Edit. After talking with my husband and mom, I've decided to give my sister a couple of days to cool off before I try reaching out to her again. You may find this naive, but we all agree this isn't like her. Maybe she and her husband are going through a rough patch financially, or maybe he pulled the plug on themed nurseries. Whatever it is, I'm not ready to go scorched earth and cut my sister off after one bizarre entitled demand. She's still my sister, the one I grew up with, who held me down when I was going through hard times, who kept me grounded, and who let me nearly break her hand from squeezing it too hard during labor until my husband arrived. None of that just goes away. Tone down your greed? Like, for example, someone who's literally trying to grab her niece's possessions? Not the jerk. Am I the jerk? My husband is better than my best friend's husband. I'm writing this post because my best friend's husband, Bert, called my husband, Tim, a jerk. I've usually kept my opinions about Bert's behavior to myself, believing that good friends say their piece once and then support each other through bad relationships. But now I'm turning to the internet for some perspective. I'm currently traveling for work, and Kate, my best friend, is at home, 7 months pregnant and on modified bed rest. Generally, I drop by once or twice a week to bring her family dinner. Tim cooks extra portions to share, cheer her up, and read bedtime stories to our oldest so she can get some extra rest. Bert works an office job, which I'm sure can be stressful. However, during Kate's pregnancy, he's been working longer hours, not for overtime, just as part of his salaried position. This has left her feeling lonely and sad. I've suggested counseling, but that's where things stand for now. Tonight, while texting with Kate around 6 in the evening, she got a craving for tacos from a place near our house, coincidentally close to Bert's office as well. She told me she asked him to pick some up on his way home, but he refused, saying he had work to do at home and suggested that she use DoorDash for something nearby. This response made her feel extremely sad. She admitted it might seem irrational, but she missed the days when he would surprise her with her favorite tacos, and now he couldn't even stop for her. Naturally, I shared this with Tim in our usual chat, just as I was getting back to my hotel and readying myself for a work dinner. When I returned from dinner, I learned that Tim had gone out, picked up tacos for Kate, grabbed a bag of items I'd been saving for her and her kid, and even pulled a tuna casserole from the freezer. Bert hates tuna casserole. He dropped everything off on their porch and texted Kate, saying there were some things I'd wanted her to have. Then Bert got home. He didn't bring tacos, coloring books, or even a good attitude. Instead, he called Tim to go off on him, accusing him of showing him up and using a lot of mean language. He even texted me, demanding I keep my husband away from his wife. Tim didn't take Bert's words kindly. When Bert called, Tim told him he was a failure as a human, a man, a father, and a husband. This set Bert off, and he screamed at him. Tim then hung up, blocked Bert, and texted Kate, telling her that if she ever needed help in an emergency, she knew where to find us, but he was done putting up with her crappy husband. Now it's a mess, and I'm not sure what will happen. My husband feels bad that things escalated. He's questioning if he was in the wrong. Bert, of course, thinks Tim is the problem. As for me, I still believe Tim is a sweet man. What do you all think? Bert is the only jerk in this situation. Also, $5 says Bert didn't want to stop for tacos because Bert has not been staying late at the office and he was nowhere near the good taco place. My new employee ran a background check on me and asked me about what he found, plus 5-year update. I started a new position recently and was quickly promoted to a management role. Given my extensive supervisory background, I was excited about the opportunity to contribute in a larger capacity. One of my direct reports is a conscientious and ambitious young man named Scott. He's been a pleasure to work with overall. However, last week, during a routine conversation about a project, Scott casually mentioned that he had done a background check on me. He then asked me about an arrest on my record, a situation that stemmed from an insurance problem which led to a driver's license issue. I was pulled over for a routine traffic stop in a conservative county and ended up spending a night in jail. It was both humiliating and illuminating. This information isn't readily available on Google. I even tried searching for it myself after our conversation, but it's not easily accessible without going through one of those background check sites that require a fee. Scott's level of detail made it clear he had likely paid for a report on me. His question was framed as part of research, and he wanted clarification on whether the incident had happened in one state or another. I had lived in both, but there's no straightforward way to connect them without paying for background information. Caught off guard, I answered truthfully that the incident was over a decade ago and was the result of unusual circumstances. I then excused myself and returned to my office, feeling increasingly unsettled as I processed the conversation. The longer I thought about it, the more disturbed I became. Scott wants to advance in his career, and while I feel a follow-up conversation is warranted, I was initially unsure of how to address it. A blunt approach like, "You seriously crossed a boundary, and this behavior won't go over well with future managers," felt a bit harsh. Yet, in this aggressive office culture, people frequently discuss their backgrounds in surprising detail with coworkers and subordinates. While I can appreciate the value of transparency, especially in a setting where background checks are part of the hiring process, I'd prefer to keep my personal background private. My issue was less about hiding the incident and more about how and why Scott accessed the information. Update. I intended to follow up with him, but he actually initiated the conversation first. As soon as I approached his desk, he brought up the topic again, this time with my booking photo pulled up on his screen. I reacted more decisively, instructing him to close the window and then pulling him aside for a one-on-one discussion. I used almost the exact phrasing you suggested, emphasizing the importance of respecting boundaries and privacy for everyone in the workplace. Scott seemed genuinely confused by my response. From his perspective, looking up someone's background was perfectly reasonable, and his justification for bringing it up was to alert me that the information was accessible. I explained that his actions showed extremely poor judgment, especially in researching a manager and then bringing it up multiple times. I pointed out that the company had already conducted a background check and hired me, which should have indicated that there was nothing problematic. I informed him that his behavior was unacceptable and that I would be documenting our conversations. I made it clear this could jeopardize his future with the company. In hindsight, I believe Scott was a smart individual who made a glaringly poor decision. Yes, I documented everything in detail. I also discussed the matter with HR and my boss, who was prepared to terminate Scott. HR was stunned by his actions, but handled the situation professionally. They agreed to support my documentation plan and noted that Scott was on his final warning. Did Scott end up getting promoted? Not while I was there. Despite the incident, he did make genuine efforts to improve and became a better team member. We eventually parted on decent terms. I even remember he read AAM for workplace guidance. After lockdown hit, my industry was among the hardest hit. I've since transitioned to a new industry and found a position with a much better work-life balance and a more reasonable workplace culture. While I sometimes miss my old career, I'm happier and far more settled now. As for Scott, I have no idea where he ended up, but I wish him well. I definitely won't be Googling him. Am I the jerk for asking my soon-to-be ex-husband why I'd take him back when the nanny does more for the family than he does? My husband and I are separated and getting a divorce. We have a 3-year-old and an 8-year-old. He owns his own business, and he had told me he'd get home at 5:30 to 6 every night. I get home around 6 or 6:30, so I never questioned that he always seemed to get home before I did. I had our 3-year-old in extended care at daycare and our 8-year-old in her school's after-school program because I believed he was working. Halfway through the school year last year, I hired a nanny instead of using the extended care programs because our oldest had some issues with her program. About 2 weeks in, I got a call from the nanny saying my soon-to-be ex-husband had locked them out of the house. He told her to take the kids to the park, but they were hungry and she didn't have car seats. His house is within walking distance of their school and daycare, so the nanny didn't need car seats to pick them up. I called him to ask what was going on, and he said he had gotten home early and wanted some space from the kids and didn't want a random 18-year-old in the house. I had to leave work early to let the kids inside. While I was talking to the nanny, she mentioned that he was always home when she arrived with the kids. She also told me he was consistently difficult, demanding that she and the kids stay away from him, ignoring them when they tried to talk to him. That was the straw that broke the camel's back for me. I filed for divorce by the end of the next week, and the kids and I moved out by the end of the following month. I ended up letting that nanny go, and now we have Amina, a 24-year-old Middle Eastern refugee with 3 kids of her own, who are 2, 4, and 7. Hiring Amina is one of the best decisions I've ever made. I come home every day to a clean house, homework done, and some of the best Arabic food I've ever tasted. I have no idea how she manages to do it all, but having her around allows me to truly enjoy my time with my kids. Instead of scrambling to make dinner, clean up, and get my 8-year-old to do her homework, I can spend quality time with them. Amina does the grocery shopping, keeps track of school events, and even handles things like clothes shopping for the kids and school supplies. My ex never did any of that. Once, I left him with the kids for a week while I went on a work trip, and they lived on McDonald's and pizza. When I got home, the house was in the worst shape I'd ever seen. Our then 2-year-old ran out of clean clothes, and instead of washing her clothes, he just bought her new clothes. Now, my ex has been asking about getting back together. He claims that being together would be better for the kids. I told him he's never really thought about what's best for the kids. Even when he has them for the weekend, all he does is take them to his mother's house. I asked why I should get back with him when Amina does more for us than he ever did. He argued that he works to provide for us, but somehow saw my working almost double his hours for similar pay as different. Now his family is accusing me of being a bad mom and saying that if I really cared about the kids, I'd want them to have 2 parents. You don't have to give a reason to anyone for not wanting to reconcile. If they insist, then I found that I'm happier, the kids are more stable, and our lives run more smoothly as things are right now. That's it. No one is owed an explanation for your decision, not even your ex. Not the jerk. Your kids already have 2 parents. It's not like one of them just disappears because you divorce. Actually, your kids didn't have a decent father while you were married. This way, at least you're only parenting 2 kids. Not the jerk. Even separated, the kids still have 2 parents. Logically, on paper they do anyways. Realistically, their dad isn't doing anything to provide for them and wasn't doing anything for them before. So having him around the house really doesn't help you or benefit the kids at all. Love how everyone says the father wasn't doing anything for the family when he literally ran his own business and paid for everything they needed. And thanks to the court system, he's still going to be paying for everything they need with all the alimony and child support he's going to be paying her from now on. Karen complains to our hotel, so I canceled her reservation. Here I am working the front desk at the hotel, enjoying a perfectly normal Sunday night when I get a phone call. It's 11 p.m. and most sane people have already decided to bed down in preparation for tomorrow. So imagine my surprise when one of my few remaining arrivals lets me know that they have a 1-year-old and that they need a crib. Cribs are on a first-come, first-served basis. These people are calling at 11 at night on the day of their arrival. I go and check for cribs. Shock of shocks, there are none left. The person on the phone insists that they put on their reservation that they need a crib. I go and look on the reservation. Nope, there is no such indication. I advise the person on the phone, the wife as it turns out, that we're out of cribs, that they're first come first serve, and they've all been taken. She hangs up on me. Fine, whatever. Maybe they'll buzz off and find other accommodations. Ha! You know darn good and well that's not how this story goes. Man walks into our lobby, tells me he needs to check in. Okay, I ask his name. He tells me, and I immediately recognize it as the name of the person who called before. Lucky me. He confirms that we have no cribs left and launches into a tirade about how it's on his reservation. It's not. It's our fault if something happens to his baby, and he feels that the conditions are unsafe. He proceeds to try to argue every possible way to place liability on the hotel for his failure to prepare. Finally, I've had enough. Well, sir, I don't want you to be in a situation where you feel unsafe. I'll just cancel your reservation and you can contact the third party with whom you've made your original reservation, and they can find you a hotel that has a crib. This guy has a lawsuit waiting to happen, and I'm not interested in listening to the story about his baby getting hurt through his failure to prepare, and now he's blaming the hotel. He smugly informs me that it's prepaid and I can't cancel it. Wanna bet? Watch this. I make the necessary clicks, and it's gone. Folks, I want a snapshot of the face he made when he realized that not only I could cancel his reservation, but I did. That wide-eyed, fleeting moment of shock and awe. It was at this moment that he knew he messed up. He storms out to his car, comes back in with his wife. You know, the one who hung up on me earlier? She tells him to shut up and shushes him. Good on her. That was a smart move. But alas, that's the only smart move she makes. "We have a 1-year-old baby," she says. "My baby is your problem. We can't go anywhere else. I don't want to try searching for another hotel. You need to bring our reservation back. I was really looking forward to trying to incriminate your hotel. We can't call the company we made the reservations with. If we don't stay here, I can't sue you for my ineptitude. We don't have any choice. I don't like the choice you gave me." This goes on, with both of them getting more and more heated. The husband threatening to dial 911. Good luck. They take at least an hour to get here, and they do nothing when they arrive. I start thinking I'm going to be stuck with these idiots forever when the wife decides to bless me with her kindness. Thanks to this woman, I receive a solution to this situation, so I can get them out of my hair and make them someone else's problem. The solution? I am going to sue you, and I am going to film you. Oh, thank you, lady. Thank you for your help. Without your stupidity, I'm not sure how I would have gotten rid of you. I inform the woman that because she's threatened legal action, I'm no longer able to assist them and they should speak to the company's lawyers. Turn around and go to the back room, close and lock the door. Come out 5 minutes later and they're gone, never to be seen again. Say it with me. A failure to prepare on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. Also, per the title of this post, play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Speaking of hotels, what's your favorite hotel you've ever stayed at? Please let us know. I'm quite fond of Motel 6 myself. Am I the jerk for banning my little cousin from my room? I, female 20, have a Barbie doll collection. I've been collecting them for my entire life. I have over 30 collectible and limited dolls, all still in box in perfect condition. They're on display in my room. My parents invite my little cousins over quite a bit, and of course, they come in my room sometimes to look at the dolls. I don't mind. They know not to touch. One of my cousins, let's call her Anna, who's 12, seemed particularly interested in my dolls. She was asking me which ones were my favorite, most valuable, ones I had the longest, etc. I was showing her my favorite one that I got it when I was a kid, and it's worth about $500. It's my favorite doll. After I finished telling her about it, we left my room and we all went downstairs to chill. I noticed all my cousins were playing except for Anna, who had disappeared sometime while everyone else was still playing. I didn't think much of it, just thought she was in the bathroom or outside playing. But after about 15 minutes, I got suspicious and went upstairs to my room. There was Anna, playing with my $500 Barbie doll. She not only opened it, but completely destroyed the box in the process. My heart dropped. I lost it. I screamed at her and told her she was never allowed in my room again. She started crying, saying she didn't know she couldn't play with it, but that's a lie. I always tell them to look, not touch. It also felt suspicious she opened the one doll I told her was the most important to me. When my aunt came back to pick my cousins up, Anna ran to her saying I yelled at her for playing with my toys and banned her from my room. My aunt was furious with me and demanded that I apologize to Anna. I refused and told my aunt she owed me a new doll. My aunt told me no doll should be worth $500 and she will not replace it. My family is divided over this. Some are on my side, but some say that I can't expect my aunt to pay $500 for another doll. So, am I the jerk? Small update. I've decided to send this thread to the family group chat, along with proof of what the doll is worth. As some people have pointed out, the doll is actually worth nearly $1,000. I think I'll be able to get more family on my side, and hopefully my aunt will read it too and see that she is wrong. Small update too. After sending this thread to my family group chat, I have everyone on my side. They understand that this isn't just a toy, but something of real value. Still, no word with my aunt, but I am hopeful my family will be able to influence her to replace the doll without having to go to court. Also, some of you seem to think I just had the doll laying around and was waving it in front of her, teasing her that she couldn't play with it. That wasn't the case. I've had this collection since I was a baby, so the dolls are no secret to anyone in my family. She also doesn't play with dolls, never has. The way she ripped the box excessively makes me near 100% sure that this was done on purpose. Tell your aunt to pay, or you'll let a small claims court decide, not the jerk. Imagine your mother-in-law breaks her own jewelry and then lies claiming your dog did it and says you have to pay her for it. That's exactly what happens in our next story. It just popped up on your screen. Give it a tap, come have a listen. You won't believe what happens next.